Hello, you're watching Nightline. I'm Anita. The top stories. Government to introduce app for foreign workers to expose errant bosses. And 11 new clusters reported with record new infections. We begin with a headlining story. The government will be introducing a new phone application for mistreated workers to lodge their complaints against employers without fear. With the introduction of this multilingual app from January, the Human Resources Ministry will be able to keep track of unscrupulous employers violating the rights of foreign workers, especially those breaching COVID-19 procedures. Human Resources Minister Datuk Seri M. Saravanan said it was not the intention of the government to target employers, but it wanted them to be responsible while educating workers on their rights so that Malaysia could improve its standing on the International Labour Organisation's Index on Forced Labour. He said to ensure all foreign workers had access to this app, it will be made available in languages spoken by Nepalese, Bangladeshis and others from different countries.
We will engage directly with the workers regardless sama ada pekerja itu daripada pekerja tempatan atau asing. Tetapi hubungan dua hal di antara pekerja dengan kerajaan akan lebih erat dan mereka akan ada satu aplikasi yang mudah. Di mana apabila majikan tak sediakan suasana yang sesuai dari segi akta 446 ataupun mengikut SOP kesihatan, kita akan terus dapat maklumat. Dan tindakan tegas akan diambil terhadap mana-mana pihak.
He added the app was also likely to stop the snitching culture, citing a recent example of leaked information that led to an errant employer quickly moving its employees away before a raid to check on a complaint that it had violated COVID-19 SOPs. The Tapah MP was speaking to reporters after presenting cheques to 301 students worth 5.8 million ringgit from the MIC-owned Maju Institute of Educational Development Fund. Malaysia on Saturday recorded the highest ever daily tally of COVID-19 infections at 2,335 cases and 11 new clusters. According to a statement by the Health Ministry, this brings the cumulative total of infections nationwide to 103,900 cases. Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said 2 new fatalities were also reported, involving a 44-year-old local woman in Sandakan, Sabah, and a 70-year-old local man in Malacca. With that, the death toll now stands at 451. Of the new cases, only 11 were imported, while the rest involved local transmissions, with 20,035 cases currently active. Kuala Lumpur registered the highest number of new cases with 728, with 93% or 677 infections from active clusters and close contact screening conducted by the ministry. This was followed by Selangor with 710 cases, Johor with 412 and Sabah with 248, while the rest of the country reported cases in single or double-digit figures except for Terengganu with 0 new infections. 108 COVID-19 patients are in intensive care, 50 of whom require breathing assistance. Meanwhile, among the 11 new clusters reported on Saturday, the largest is the Tapak Bina Jalan Seng cluster in Titiwangsa, Kuala Lumpur, with 232 cases. Also, the Pagar Siput cluster in Kota Tinggi, Johor, with 129 cases, and Plastik Subang cluster with 111 cases. To date, 215 clusters are still active. Though many stayed home on Christmas Day to curb the spread of COVID-19, 1,002 individuals were detained for flouting the SOP during the Recovery Movement Control Order, RMCO. Senior Minister for Security Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, in a statement on Saturday, said 687 of them engaged in activities at entertainment centres on the public holiday. The SOP violations include failure to adhere to physical distancing, involving 125 individuals, followed by 69 who were not wearing face masks in public. 63 people were also held for failure to provide tools for registration at their premises, while 58 people were detained for other SOP violations. From the total nabbed, 854 individuals were compounded and 148 remanded. Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, in his special New Year's message on December 31st, will be announcing if the Conditional Movement Control Order, CMCO, will be extended. Senior Minister for Security Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said the matter is slated to be discussed in the Special Ministerial Committee meeting on the Movement Control Order this coming Monday.
Yang Berhormat Perdana Menteri, saya percaya dalam perutusan khas tahun baru nanti, Yang Berhormat saya yakin akan menyebutkan tentang PKP sama ada disambung atau tidak. Kalau disambung, apa dia, bagaimana bentuknya dan sebagainya. Semua detail tu akan dibentangkan oleh Yang Berhormat Perdana Menteri. Jadi kita tunggulah. Jadi saya beri suspend macam tu je lah dulu.
He explained that any decision taken will be based on the advice of the Health Ministry. Meanwhile, Dato' Ismail Sabri said that the reopening of schools scheduled for January 20th will go on as planned unless there are any further announcements by the Education Ministry. Dato' Sri Ismail Sabri was met after appearing on TV3's morning talk show, Borak Kopitiam. The government will make improvements to the halal standards, especially concerning meat and imported meat products. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Religious Affairs, Datuk Sri Dr. Zulkifli Muhammad Al-Bakri, said that this will include reviewing how exporting countries obtained halal certification for their products exported into Malaysia.
Saya melihat dalam isu ini kita mesti tengok dengan dua sudut yang berbeza. Sudut yang pertama dari segi undang-undang. Undang-undang apabila menyalahi apa yang telah ditetapkan oleh pihak kerajaan, maka salahlah. Itu perlu dilihat dan dibetulkan semula. Ada bab di mana perkara tersebut tidaklah perlu kepada halal jakim. Contohnya kita sembelih korban hari raya. Jadi tak perlulah nak pergi ambil cop.
He also urged consumers to refer to the list of registered products and halal status according to source countries that is available on JAKIM's website to allay any concerns on the halal meat issue. It was reported that a meat cartel had been operating for the last 40 years, smuggling uncertified frozen meat from Argentina, Brazil, Ukraine and China into Malaysia using fake halal labels. Meanwhile, the Department of Islamic Development Malaysia, JAKIM, will tighten the enforcement and the Standard Operating Procedure, SOP, for the issuance of halal certification for all imported products, including meat from abroad. Deputy Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Ahmad Marzuq Shari, said JAKIM would step up collaboration with the relevant agencies, including the Domestic Trade and Consumer Affairs Ministry, to resolve the issue.
Jadi insyaAllah dengan berlakunya pembongkaran ini, pihak kerajaan akan terus memperkukuhkan lagi SOP termasuk kawal selia dan juga barangkali perlu kepada manpower yang lebih, kita akan buat pengambilan staf untuk memperkukuhkan perkara. Tapi apa yang saya nak sebutkan bahawa bukan sahaja melibatkan JAKIM tetapi dia melibatkan banyak kementerian yang kita akan berkolaborasi sama.
He added the move was taken to ensure that Malaysians, particularly Muslims, could obtain halal meat from reliable sources that follow Islamic teachings. The 69 billion ringgit development expenditure under Budget 2021 is important to drive Malaysia's economic recovery, despite it being 38% higher than the figure earmarked in the previous national budget. The amount was needed to support business activities as well as stimulate economic growth to reach 7.5% next year.
There's a special focus towards small-scale projects, for example. There's 3.5 billion that's, for small-scale projects. These are, sort of maintenance works we do even in the rural areas, combined with, for example, large infrastructure projects. The government has announced its commitment to continue with the ECRL. Even announced that we're still in conversations with Singapore on the high-speed rail.
For the record of the total development expenditure amount, 67.3 billion ringgit is in the form of direct allocation, while 1.7 billion ringgit will be given out as loans to state governments and government-linked entities. Speaking on TV3's Money Matters talk show on Saturday, Johan also commented on the Fitch Ratings downgrade of Malaysia's sovereign rating to BBB+ from A-. He said the government needs to take the necessary measures to ensure the needs of the country and its people are protected amid the pandemic. He also stressed that Malaysia was not the only country, as a rating agency also downgraded sovereign ratings for more than 100 countries, including the United Kingdom, Hong Kong, Chile and Laos. Coming up after this break, biggest haul of the year, 25.87 million ringgit worth of drugs seized. The details next. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Still on Nightline. Pulau Pinang police crippled a drug trafficking syndicate with the arrest of 2 local men and the seizure of an assortment of drugs weighing 573 kilograms worth 25.87 million ringgit in a series of raids in Nibong Tebal earlier this week. In a press conference on Saturday, State Police Chief Datuk Sahabuddin Abdul Manan said the raids conducted following public tip-offs and police intelligence led to the arrest of the first suspect in a car at Taman Perindustrian Nibong Tebal with shabu worth 4.67 million ringgit.
Hasil soal siasat yang dijalankan ke atas suspek pertama telah mendedahkan lokasi sebuah premis kedai iaitu stor penyimpanan bekalan pelbagai jenis dadah di kawasan Taman Perindustrian Nibong Tebal, seberang Terai Selatan, dan polis telah melaksanakan serbuan kedua di premis kedai berkenaan dan telah menjumpai sejumlah dadah disyaki syabu, serbuk ekstasi, pil ekstasi, heroin base dan ketamin yang dianggarkan bernilai 21.19 juta.
Further checks showed the suspect was the syndicate's main mastermind and was waiting for his customers to sell the shabu, all of which were packed inside Chinese herbal tea packaging to avoid detection. Datuk Sahabuddin said the second suspect, aged 43, was also nabbed in Nibong Tebal and was believed to be linked to a drug trafficking syndicate which was busted in the middle of this year. Datuk Sahabuddin said the seizure is the biggest in the state this year. The search and rescue operation for 2 men who were reported missing and are feared to have drowned at separate beaches in Marang, Terengganu on Friday continues, despite heavy swells. Marang District Police Chief Deputy Superintendent Muhammad Zain Madris said as of 11 p.m. on Saturday, no new leads were found. He said the SAR was continued at 7 a.m. on Saturday, covering a stretch of 52 kilometres along the coastal area from Kuala Marang to Kuala Dungun. Boats from the Marine Police and the Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency were used in the search and rescue operation on Saturday, as they are more suitable with the current sea conditions. A total of 43 personnel from various agencies, including the Police, Fire and Rescue Department, Civil Defence Force, Maritime and RELA, are involved in the operation. The 2 missing persons are Wan Nashaifuddin Wan Latif, 48, from Kampung Bukit Tokbat, Kuala Berang, who went missing at Pantai Jambu Bongkok at about 6:30 p.m. on Friday. The other case was reported a few minutes later at Pantai Demarang Village, Kelulut, involving Naim Hariri Kamaruddin, 31, from Kuala Lumpur. It is learned that Naim Hariri was in Marang for his marriage solemnisation, scheduled for Saturday at Masjid Kampung Surau Haji Mat Zain, Bukit Payong. In the meantime, the wedding feast scheduled for Saturday proceeded despite the groom's absence. Ismail Awang, the father of 27-year-old Fatin Nabila Huda, said he accepted the tragedy as fate. Fatin Nabila Huda was scheduled to marry Naim Hariri at the Kampung Surau Haji Mat Zain Mosque in Bukit Payong at 10 a.m. on Saturday. The couple got engaged last month. Ismail and his family appeared calm while attending to the guests who came to express sympathy upon learning about the suspected drowning incident. Ismail added, according to the plan, after the wedding ceremony on Saturday, a similar one would be hosted by the groom's family in Kuala Lumpur on January 9th. The second wave of floods in Kelantan are over, and the last temporary evacuation centre, or PPS, in the Pasir Mas district that was opened on December 18th ceased operations on Saturday. Pasir Mas Social Welfare Department Officer Azizan Aziz said the PPS at Sekolah Kebangsaan Gual Tok Deh, that sheltered 33 people from 6 families, was closed at 2 p.m. He said all evacuees were allowed to return home after the floodwaters receded. Meanwhile, according to the Info Banjir website, as at 3 p.m, the water level at Sungai Golo in Rantau Panjang was 8.08 metres, slightly above the warning level of 8 metres, but showing a downward trend. At the same time, the water level of Sungai Golo at Kuala Jambu Tumpat remained above the warning level at 2.48 metres. People in the area were advised to take precaution, and evacuation centres will reopen if heavy rain occurs causing floods. We're going for a short break. When we return, massive explosion rips through Nashville on Christmas Day. Stay tuned. We're back with the news on the foreign front. 3 people were injured and a possible death was reported in a huge blast that tore through a section of downtown Nashville, Tennessee on Friday, knocking out communication systems across the state. Police believe the powerful blast was caused deliberately, and what looked like human remains were found in the blast site. Police responding to reports of gunfire at 6 a.m. local time found a camper van broadcasting a warning message to vacate the area and that it was carrying a bomb. The van exploded a few minutes later. The blast area was largely deserted due to the early hour on a Christmas Day holiday. The blast left as many as 20 buildings, including storefronts, badly damaged and the road surface charred in an area filled with businesses, restaurants and bars. Police have now released this image of the van, described by Nashville Police as a recreational vehicle, RV, arriving at the scene early on Friday. No motive has yet been established, nor do police know who was behind the incident. Meanwhile, in Afghanistan, at least 2 were killed and 3 injured in a series of explosions that hit the capital, Kabul, on Saturday morning. Police spokesman said, first, a magnetic bomb attached to a police vehicle detonated in western Kabul, killing 2 officers and injuring a civilian. The second bombing took place in southern Kabul, wounding another 2 policemen. A third magnetic bomb detonated in eastern Kabul, but no casualties were reported. There were reports of at least 2 other blasts elsewhere in the city, but police have no immediate details. No one has immediately claimed responsibility for the attacks in Kabul. The latest attacks came as Taliban and Afghan government negotiators held talks in Qatar, trying to hammer out a peace deal that could put an end to decades of war. Millions of Britons woke up to tighter restrictions as rule changes came into force across the United Kingdom. Around 6 million people in East and South East England have gone into Tier 4, England's highest COVID-19 level, which includes a stay-at-home order. Lockdowns have also started in Scotland and Northern Ireland, and measures have been reimposed in Wales after being eased for Christmas. This comes after the official UK coronavirus deaths passed 70,000 on Christmas Day. The toughest measures, which mean the closure of all non-essential shops, now apply to around 24 million people in England, more than 40% of the population. The first week until January 2nd will be observing stricter restrictions, including essential shops closing at 8 p.m. and no sports activities. For the first week, people are also banned from meeting indoors or outdoors between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. Thailand on Saturday confirmed 110 new COVID-19 infections, of which 64 were local infections, connected to an outbreak in the southwest province of Samut Sakhon, becoming the country's worst outbreak yet. Of the new infections, 30 were among migrant workers and 16 were imported cases. Thailand has a total of 6,020 confirmed cases and 60 deaths so far. COVID-19 cases have jumped significantly since an outbreak was detected last week among migrants from Myanmar working at a seafood market in a country where the outbreak was kept well under control. Japan's health ministry has confirmed the country's first cases of infection with the new coronavirus variant that was identified in Britain. The 5 people arrived between December 18th and December 21st before Japan stepped up border control on Friday for entrance from Britain. A man in his 60s developed fatigue, but the 4 others were without symptoms. Health Minister Norihisa Tamura said the 5 were sent to quarantine straight from the airports. South Korea posted its second highest daily number of coronavirus cases on Saturday as outbreaks at a prison, nursing homes and churches continue to grow. This has prompted authorities to plead for a halt to all year-end gatherings. The country reported another new 1,132 coronavirus cases as the resurgence worsened over Christmas week, putting pressure on the government to enforce stricter social distancing controls. Another 220 people have died in the past 15 days, raising the death toll to 793. We now take a look at the highlights in Malaysia's main newspapers for Sunday, December 27th. The New Sunday Times reports on medical experts urging holidaymakers not to throw caution to the window to prevent a holiday surge, since things are looking great for domestic tourism this holiday season. And a report on a groom who drowned and is missing in Marang, Terengganu on Friday, a day before his wedding, leaving his bride brokenhearted, is among the top stories featured on Malaysia's best-selling Malay newspaper Harian Metro. An article on airline graduates left jobless and with hefty debts due to the COVID-19 pandemic takes the front page of Berita Harian. Don't forget to get your copies or subscribe to the online newspaper. Just 1 month on from his death, Maradona's first home is set to open its doors to the public. The modest house in the La Paterna district of Buenos Aires was gifted to the football star when he signed his first contract in 1978 with the club Argentinos Juniors. Let's take a look at the visuals as we wrap up Nightline. With that, I'm Anita. Thank you for watching and be well, Malaysia.